I feel more official in a blazer. You know what I'm saying?
You're here to work.
You know, can we just get back to that?
You give your best ever review.
It's true.
Martin Luther King once said.
So James, my friend had a baby today. Congratulations to my friend.
Congrats,
Very cleose friend of mine had a baby.
Nice.
But this is a really, really spooky thing.
Did they know they were having it?
Whoa!
Yeah.
I feel so much more better now. No, my friend has had a baby. Oh, mother doing well, family doing well,
Nice.
baby doing well. But when she was pregnant a few months ago, about 6 months ago, when she first broke the news, it's like, oh my God, congratulations. And then about a week or so later, I was just thinking about them as a family. And in my head, I was like, yeah. So the dad and her and the baby, and I said the baby's name in my head, right? The baby doesn't have a name, right?
Right.
But in my head, I was like,
What was the name?
and Oliver, right? And I was
So
like,
you didn't know it was called Oliver?
no, it's a baby. It's a 3-month-old fetus.
And they didn't tell you the name?
They didn't have a name. They didn't know the sex of the baby.
That is strange.
But I said, I was like, this is really weird. I was like, it just came to me. I was just like, oh yeah, so so and Oliver. I was like, why did I say Oliver? I was like, I have no one in my life called that name.
Yeah.
They've never said that name to me. But I was like, isn't that weird? Why did I just say that in my head? And then just for a bit of fun, I said to myself, man, I'm just going to hold on to that. I'm going to hold on to that.
Did you tell anyone, or did you just keep it?
I said to Anna, I was like, I think this is going to be the baby's name. I don't know why, but I just had this like moment where I thought it was going to be the baby's name. And I told the mother-to-be, I said, I'm not going to tell you what it is because I don't want to influence this, but I think I know what your baby's going to be
Write it down
called.
on a piece of paper.
And she was like, okay, cool, whatever. And as we got closer and closer to the pregnancy, I was like, okay, it might be a boy, but it might not be called Oliver. Or it might be a girl that's called Olivia or something like that. Anyway, she had the baby. I get a message this morning announcing the birth of the child. I open my message and James, the baby's called Oliver.
How does that...
I know. I could not believe. How spooky is that?
Is there like a parent or a grandparent called Oliver?
I don't know about that.
So what's my child going to be called? George.
I don't know. But isn't it...
The sight comes to you when it comes to you.
I just trusted my instinct. I thought, okay, I had this little voice in my head said this child's going to be called Oliver. And I said, fuck it. Let's just assume it is. Because also like, if it isn't, okay, then I'll forget all about it.
Yeah.
And I would never have talked about that again. But it actually... I said to talking about it now, I can't actually believe that that's the kid's name.
That is crazy, yeah. I wonder what else you got like going on in there. You've got a whole skill you're just not really tapping into. I told you about the time in New York I went to go see a psychic for like $10.
Yeah.
And it was the best $10 I spent in New York, considering how expensive it is.
But didn't you say she thought you were American and a lot of her
No,
tips
she's
were
third American. She made a couple of predictions based on things happening in specific US states. And it's like, well, she doesn't know that I'm British, probably, and it's like probably assuming that something would happen to me. But what she got me immediately because she asked to read my palm, and she was like, okay, I just want you to clear your mind, and then, think of some things that might be on your mind. And the week I went to New York was the week we set up PULP KITCHEN as a limited company, which is like the second business I've ever set up. And literally, obviously, like thinking about the show a lot and blah, blah, blah. And she looks at my hand and she goes, oh, I see 2 businesses. Recently 2 businesses. And I didn't say anything, but in my head I was like, holy shit. She is bang on. And then she made like 50 predictions. But regardless of whether or not they're true, that $10 was so valuable because it made me think really intensely about my life for like the rest of the day, if not the week. And I was like, that was so entertaining and nourishing to have someone present you with like, I think this is going to happen to you. And it's something I'd even not thought of before. And now I'm like, would that happen? Would it? What do I feel about that happening?
Florida. Should
I get rid of George? Is that what she's saying?
There's someone bringing you down in your life.
Yes.
Wasn't Florida meant to be a big thing?
Yeah, someone said that something's going to happen to you in the state of Florida. So again, like I
was worried then when I went to the state of Florida.
Yes,
I was like, what's going to happen to me?
I said to George, I was like, look, I'm just saying something big's going to happen. Maybe keep an eye out. Maybe a business opportunity, maybe a brand, maybe some sort of like experience that's going to tie us over there. Needless to say that didn't happen yet, but I'm on, if I ever go to Florida, I'll be looking out.
Welcome to Clairvoyance Monthly, where we look into the future.
I was at an after party the other day and someone had tarot cards.
Oh, yeah.
And that was really good fun.
Yeah, they are good fun.
Yeah.
Have you ever done a Ouija board?
No.
No, me neither.
No, I feel like they're not very British.
No, they aren't, are they?
I've never really encountered them in the UK.
No, we do. What about seance? I feel like that's slightly more British.
No, I've never done like the penta thing on the ground with the candles. And is that a seance?
That is a seance.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Or like we all hold hands and sort of gyrate. No.
Hello?
Yeah.
Is anybody there?
Have you?
No.
No.
I had my palm read. I think I had my palm read when I was 14 and I was in Sri Lanka.
And?
Mostly positive. But then he told me also never to go in the sea.
Really?
And I have. Yeah.
And do you
But
are you going to think about that for the rest of your
The
life?
older I get, the more I think about, the more careful I am in the sea.
Yeah.
And I do love going for a swim.
Of course you do. You're a human being.
Yeah, why not?
But do you ever just go, I could swim out there, but you know what? I'm going to stay where I can stand.
Yeah, I have done. There's been a
Yeah.
couple of times, but as I've got older, I'm thinking, you know what? I don't want to...
Do you dislike swimming on open water? Talia really dislikes open water.
Oh, well,
She's
like,
fear of it.
like thalassophobia, is it? You know,
No, thalassophobia is like the fear of what's lying beneath the sea.
Right.
But like just open water. So Talia doesn't like it when you get on a boat and you go out, even when you can see the shore, but like just jumping into the open water.
Yeah, well, you can't touch the bottom kind of thing.
Yeah.
No, I'm okay with that, I think.
Yeah.
I think it is weird. We did that in Florida a little bit. It is weird at first, but really,
It's fine.
yeah, just
What I like
don't let the fear in.
is when when it's sunny and the sun's rays
Yes.
like show how high up, inverted commas, you are on a sea, and you get this sense of vertigo of your feet dangling. I
Yeah.
quite like that. I'm like, oh, this is cool.
Yeah.
You can't see the bottom.
Sorry, you actually just reminded me, when we were in Florida, we were like on the boat, we were looking down the rays, we were going through that, and it was so murky.
Yeah.
The intercoastal river, and we were like, oh, should we jump in? Should we see how deep it is?
Yeah.
And we were like, oh my God, how far is it? Like should we go for a swim? We start to climb down the ladder. We're like, ah! And we jump in, and it goes like to our knees. It's so shallow. It was so disappointing. Anyway, welcome to episode 98.
Set eight.
98.
98.
98 of Pulp Kitchen. I'm a little overdressed today, for those who can see us. We've just come from the London Film Festival premiere of Chicken Run, Dawn of the Nugget.
Very good fun.
We will be reviewing that towards the actual film's release date, because we've hopefully going to have some more exciting developments to share about that film. But as we said before, we're both big fans of the original Chicken Run.
Yes, love Chicken
So
Run.
we look forward to sharing our thoughts. But one thing we did do today, in anticipation of this film, was we were invited to a workshop by Aardman. Now, Aardman, of course, as we know, the people behind Chicken Run, and they kind of talked us through, and we had this kind of fun build your own chicken workshop.
Don't know. It's all made from plasticine clay and stuff.
Predominantly. Although he was very informative about.
Yeah. He said actually, there's a lot more going under the scenes.
And it felt quite like we're being let into like the secret workshop and about how the kind of operation works. And
we started out with like essentially all the colours of clay in different quantities to make ginger.
Yeah, it looked like a very, like we said, like a Heston Blumenthal,
Heston Blumenthal
tiramisu.
stripped back down to its bare essentials. Yeah.
And then we built our own chickens.
Well, I think mine's very
show
much
I know
in transit. Oh God.
I'm sorry for our listeners who can't see this. But,
Apologies to any children, but this is the
oh
head.
dear.
I mean, if you follow us on Instagram at Pulp Kitchen
would have seen
Podcast,
these
you would have seen. Oh God.
Oh dear.
Oh no.
Oh no, mine's actually intact.
Yours intact. Hold on, let me just reattach the arm and the head. of
Yours.
mine.
Oh my God, that's actually really quite
That's
horrific.
like the alternate ending of Chicken Run. Yes. How Mrs. Tweedy hopes it does.
Got her head blown off running for the fence. So
Okay.
this is, people can see this. This is my ginger, relatively intact.
Mine's not as intact. Oh, I'm missing an eye.
Although it looks-
children, look away.
It's a bit like she's had a lot to drink. Anyway.
Yeah, yours is like when Chicken Run 3 doesn't do well and Ginger goes to therapy. Cause
I said it looks like when they've massively outsourced production to like a developing nation of 3 people in the back of like a converted shipping container.
Yeah,
Like
we can do it.
we can do plasticine.
Sirens on our end.
Sirens on our end. Anyway,
But yeah, always good fun to do those little things. And then the guy who ran it was really lovely. He was the chief model designer. Or I say
Something
chief,
like that.
head of. He's very important in
he's
this film.
been at Aardman for nearly 20
Yeah, he
years.
said he joined just after Chicken Run 1 came out. And it was nice. Just we sort of threw a couple of questions to him at the end. We were asked like, how much material do you go through?
Yeah.
And I asked him, when you do those wide shots where there's like 30 plus chickens, I was like, does that? Because it took us an hour to do it, and I asked him, how long does it take you to make a single model properly? And he said, like a week to a month. And I was like, well, surely to get a wide, that must just take
Yeah.
so much time. And if you're moving 20 at once, like that just must be such an ordeal. And he's like, yeah, you get it done. And
He
blah,
did
blah.
seem like a guy who had spent a lot of time like
Yes.
leaning over a
Under
desk.
like a lamp, Pixar lamp, like with magnifying glasses, looking over, really sort of nice,
and he was
humble.
looking at us amateurs, just bastardizing his work.
But what about mine?
If I do the eyes like this, I
Yeah.
was just thinking I'm a craftsman.
When I knew we were out of our depth, it was like make the eyeball, then make the iris, then like the black bit of the eye. And it's like, and if you want to, you can put in some white in the top right left-hand corner to catch the sort of key light reflection in the spherical. And I was like, this is just going to look like a white blob on my eye. This is where you've lost me. But really cool, really good fun.
Really cool. Always great fun to do
Still
that
got it
stuff.
under my nails.
But yeah, stay tuned for our review of Chicken Run, Dawn of the Nugget, which will come in due course. But today, what we are going to be reviewing, as mentioned in our show last week, is Maestro, which is coming out in December. So we're a little early about it, but definitely a big awards contender for next year. Bradley Cooper's second film he's directed.
And starred in.
And starred in, yeah. And, you know, it's a big, glossy biopic Oscar contender. So
Stay tuned for it.
Stay tuned for that. And then also, Killers of the Flower Moon is now out. Go check out our review from last week. We're also going to be doing a bonus episode this week that'll come out later, come out on Friday, where James has now seen it.
I've now seen it.
We'll do a spoiler discussion about that. All right. So let's do Maestro. So as I just mentioned, it's Bradley Cooper's sophomore directorial effort 5 years after A Star Is Born, which we both thought was fine.
Yeah.
Solid enough. A lot of people loved it. But
Overhyped for me.
Yeah. I didn't mind A Star Is Born. I was excited to go and see Maestro. I like it when actors break out of the one strip lane of acting and are able to write and direct and flex their muscles in other ways. All for it. I like Bradley Cooper as an actor.
Very talented guy.
Very talented actor, very sincere. I've always kind of warmed to him on screen, and when in interviews, he's very passionate, very articulate. And so we have a film about Leonard Bernstein, not Bernstein, as I've been saying for my whole life.
Fine.
Bernstein, as the film repeats often. James, Leonard Bernstein. How much does that? Right,
Very
no,
little.
fair enough. Because
know the name, but not the story.
Similarly, I knew very little about Leonard Bernstein. Other than that, he was a huge figure in music and classical music in America, predominantly in the second half of the last century. Kind of becoming America's first great conductor. But he also was a composer as well. He wrote the music for West Side Story and much else besides. A huge figure in American culture. And I think a film about Bernstein has been kind of in the works for a long time. And what you finally have is this film made by Bradley Cooper, but produced, not executive produced, but produced by Martin Scorsese and Steven Spielberg, amongst other people, which is pretty
big names.
Two big names have stamped onto your film. And what I noticed as well is in the end credits, after it's gone written and directed by Bradley Cooper, the next credits you get are produced by Martin Scorsese on its own, produced by Bradley Cooper on its own, produced by Steven Spielberg on its own. It's like top billing because of the name attached. Anyway, Leonard Bernstein, a very talented musician who began his career as a conductor, gets a big break in his early 20s. We're talking about the 1950s at this point.
Right.
And is this sort of virtuoso conductor and also composer at the same time. There is this tension in his life between the two. He wants to, he recognizes being a conductor, but he also wants to create music. And the film kind of follows his life. It follows the fact that he was, by all accounts and by other people's commentary, and if you read around the film and his life, he was a gay man who was married to a woman. It's about his relationship and his marriage to Felicity Montenegro, who was an actress played in this by Carey Mulligan.
Good and everything.
Yeah, Carey Mulligan, good and everything. And the film charts sort of his tension between his married life and also his sexuality outside of that. His tension between being a conductor and a composer, as I mentioned, his tension between being a Jewish person in a very white, waspish country, and trying to cement himself in his place in American culture. So that's the kind of setup for it. Now, like I said, was really excited to go see Maestro, and also because as someone who doesn't know a lot about Bernstein at all,
Perfect.
I was I thought I was like perfect audience. I know enough to know who he was, enough to who he is, that I want to go in and take that in. So what's very clear in this and also you'll see from the pictures and the production of Maestro that it's incredibly luscious and sort of heavily dressed Oscar contender. You know, it's a it's a biopic with a capital B. And I kind of rub my fingers together and think, I want to see this figure. And Bradley Cooper, it is clear, has such awe and admiration for Bernstein as a character. Like he really, I can when you watch the character of Bernstein through the camera with which Bradley Cooper is shooting, it is like it's so clear that he has that much admiration for him. I have to say though, I'm very sorry at this. I was really quite disappointed with Maestro. And it gives me no pleasure to say that for all the reasons I said. I want to see Bradley Cooper develop as a filmmaker. Sirens on our end. I want to see an interesting film about Leonard Bernstein. And it really, really didn't come alive for me at all. Let's just talk about... like I said, I think it's clear that Bradley Cooper is really passionate about Bernstein, but I felt that he could never quite separate the wood through the trees. I think that he was so in awe of this figure that he could never translate that awe into cinematic delight, cinematic story. You know, I mentioned when I did the Killers of the Flower Moon trailer that you're immediately in the presence of a craftsman like Scorsese who knows how to like synthesize performance, dialogue, sound, vision into a compelling story straight away. And with Maestro, there's like individual elements that are very interesting. This idea of him being, you know, his personal life, his professional life, but it never ever came together in a way that I thought was interesting. And I've been thinking all week about why it didn't lift off for me. Was it personal? Was it just not my kind of film? And the thing is, I really don't think there's a compelling story in the film. The film tells you in every scene that it's important. But the longer, and actually I must say it was only about half an hour in before I realised that this isn't lifting for me at all, and I've got another hour and a half to go. I don't know if there's a compelling story in this film, and I'm not sure. Maybe I came out of it thinking, was Bernstein that interesting?
So it's like an amazing person,
yes,
about which in this instance the story hasn't quite come off the.
That's the thing, and I was really puzzled by it, and it got me thinking about one thing, which is when I saw A Star Is Born, I remember that in interviews, Bradley Cooper was talking very deeply and very like knowledgeably about the backstory of all of his characters, like between the backstory between Bradley Cooper's character and their older brother played by Sam Elliott in A Star Is Born.
Right, yeah.
And I remember thinking, oh wow, that sounds really interesting. And then I remember going to see A Star Is Born and none of that was in there. None of that was in there.
Right.
And I couldn't help but the feeling when I was watching Maestro was like, I think you've left a lot of the best bits out, Bradley Cooper. I think you've left a lot of the interesting bits out because
Is it written by Bradley Cooper?
It's co-written by Bradley Cooper. So it's co-written by, produced by, directed by, and starring by. It's one of those vehicles. And I'll get on to why that doesn't... That's another issue for me as well. So why else doesn't it work? I think the first thing why I don't think it works is that thing about story. I don't think it's got a dramatic kind of punch behind it. It really just doesn't come together, and it doesn't have a good enough gripping story to bring together all those elements in an interesting way. The second thing is I think aesthetically as a whole approach, I found it just so grand and so over the top, and without a dramatic tension to kind of weigh that down, I found the whole thing... The word I'd used is overdressed. The whole thing felt very grand. And I found that quite off-putting because it made all the performances seem really mannered and stilted and over the top. And there's a particular like argument scene between Carey Mulligan and Bradley Cooper, which I felt was like, this is acting with a big A. This is, here it is.
Actor's favourite scene.
Well, exactly. And I came out of it thinking, I can't even say like the performances aren't bad at all. They're very committed performances, don't get me wrong. But it's like, I was never moved by those performances because I felt they were so arch. The whole presentation of the film is so arch that I never felt I could connect to them. There's also this slightly deeper... uncomfortable thing I have, which is that the whole way the film is shot feels quite out of date in the kind of Oscar vehicle it is. And what I mean by that is like the way that Bradley Cooper shoots himself playing this very significant figure in like tight close-up in big, deep prosthetics, being all actory. And I can feel like the lens, the camera frame being like, oh, look at this acting, look at this figure, look at this.
The transformation.
And it's a little bit like egotistical. Yeah, and it's a
Yeah.
little bit like, okay, I would really have liked him to have stepped back and like just bring down the scale, all this grandness. There's like a bit at the beginning where Leonard Bernstein gets a very significant call in his career. He has to step in for someone being a conductor. And after he's got the call, which is shot in this very minimal frame and lighting, he then like bursts through the door and he's like, yeah. And then it like cuts like a CGI rendering of Carnegie Hall.
Right.
And I thought, it just felt really imbalanced. And that's the other thing I felt with him trying all these different devices. It became clear to me, or I felt that Bradley Cooper is still figuring out how to be a filmmaker, which is absolutely fine. You've got to learn by doing. But there's that slight thing of like, you're in your film school phase. You just happen to have a massive budget
and talent.
Shouldn't maybe come back to me when you've made it. I believe that Bradley Cooper will make a really good film.
And be a sous chef for a year and sort of
I hate to say it because some directors like Jordan Peele was able to hit the ground running and like naturally was very. But with this, and look, I recognise I sound very kind of negative and a little bit just down on it. And
I think expectations are high. Like I've not seen it, but my expectations are sort of up there in that category of nomination.
Every person I've spoken to about this, I always say this one thing just to help back my point. At the London Film Festival, at the end of, and this is the press and industry screenings, at the end of most press and industry screenings, actually every press and industry screening I've ever been to, there's always applause.
Mine too,
a respectful applause, just like that. There was nothing at the end of Maestro.
That is quite telling.
And I think as a temperature check of the room, and I think, again, it's not that people like hated the film. I don't hate the film. Nothing of that.
But it's maybe people are coming out of it slightly conflicted in a way. They don't know they love it.
I think it's generally like a bit of bewilderment. And that's why I realised halfway into this film, I was thinking, it looks great. You've got great performers, but it is completely dull and dead and devoid of like any kind of spark for me, which is, I hate saying that about film.
It's one of the worst things you can say is that even if it didn't insult you, is that it never interested you in the first place.
And part of me is like, I kind of wish Bradley Cooper had just directed this or just directed and written this, not starred in it, or he just starred in it. I think there's just something, I needed another creative voice in there to come in and shift it around. But genuinely, I came out and I was thinking, where's the real drama there? If they kind of flirt with different ideas, like it's the conductor composer, then it's his personal life, then it kind of settles about being about the marriage between him and Felicity Montenegro, the Carey Mulligan's character.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. That is a relatively interesting story. But if that is your story, I'm sorry, but I've seen that done better. Fosse Verdon was a really good TV series about Bob Fosse, the director, and Gwen Verdon, the dancer, and their creative collaboration and their marriage. And I got so much more out of that than I did with this. I felt like Cooper was just being like, I felt like he thought it was enough to put a great man on screen. He almost didn't want to lower himself by having to justify Bernstein's presence on screen. I also have this thing that I think that this is just a theory. I wonder if having the presence of Scorsese and Spielberg producing your film put an undue pressure on Cooper to try and deliver something. Because sometimes when I watched the film, I was like, I think this would be better if it actually just tried to be a traditional, straightforward biopic. But sometimes it tries to be really bold and different. And I think you aren't, I don't think you're an interesting filmmaker enough or have got enough to run with to pull that off. But I feel like because Scorsese and Spielberg are producing this, you don't want to produce a kind of standard.
You want to aim big.
Yeah, you want to aim big and you don't want to produce a standard biopic. And I think that kind of falls down in the middle. I really wish I could just grab Bradley Cooper and say, just tell me the story straight. Give me forget all the trappings. And also, sorry, one last thing that's quite ironic is that the film has kind of, in a way, if you stripped all of that away and said, no, but it's about a flawed. What is he flawed? Not really. A highly successful figure with a kind of dramatic personal life. And I said, the problem is, the film has weirdly been superseded by Tar.
Yeah,
Tar is about a fictional conductor, but I learned more about
references to real people
and references Bernstein. Yeah, I've learned more about conducting and the price of being of a tyrant and being at the height of your game and
having highest form of your art
and having a troubled background whilst also being a very bold film in terms of filmmaking.
And creatively getting to lean into that sort of like Darren Aronofsky Black Swan type creative flair.
Yeah.
In it. You get to like express yourself outside of the realms of what actually happened.
Yeah. So bizarrely, Tar offers you more in that realm than Maestro does. There are a couple of moments that I quite liked, interesting bits. We don't see... The thing is, we don't see him conduct that much. They almost save it up for one scene where they do a big bit of conducting, but I was so detached from the film by that point. It was the kind of film, like I said, when it ended, no one clapped and a lot of people got up straight away to go. Anyway, I recognise, I hold in my hands that I am saying this where, it's not out yet. I look forward to hearing everyone else's opinion. I don't want to be, I don't think it's a terrible film. I just think it's just not that interesting. And that is really sad.
I do, interesting to hear you say that. I do still really, I say looking forward to see it. I'm still really curious myself to go and see it, and I will as soon as I get a chance. I think, the sort of actor, director, someone taking on both of those roles is always in some ways impressive, but like it's very daunting. And I think Bradley Cooper's one of those actors that's had the chance to work and consult with some of the best directors working now / of all time. And I wonder... I wonder if you like that factor of like being lost in it and trying to create something bigger than what you should.
Yeah, I feel like you need to, especially when you're sort of dealing with rubbing shoulders with Scorsese and Spielberg, that you feel the need to produce something better than it is. You're not being true.
Runtime?
Only just over 2 hours.
Yeah. Bradley Cooper's also an actor I think I still really look out for. I'm always interested to see what he's doing next outside of like the odd hairsy David O. Russell thing.
But what I was also thinking of is about... it's like in a way, the film kind of made me reject this idea of this kind of film being an Oscar contender anymore. When I was watching, I felt like this whole approach, this whole idea that this is what wins an Oscar now, big biopic about a big figure with big prosthetics, big performances, felt very like 10 years ago, even longer. It felt very passé, and I feel like we've gone past that now.
It's quite embarrassing when you can tell they're going for it, but they just don't hit that.
Well, that's the thing. The fact that people are writing about it and talking about it, like I just did when I introed it as being a contender for the Oscars this year, is kind of...
Where does that come from?
Where does that come from?
The talent and the,
It's the association.
The aesthetic.
This type of film, this type of story, this type of performance, this type of subject matter gets... an Oscar.
I remember seeing the trailer for Blonde, and I was like, "Oh yeah, it's going for it."
Well, that's exactly it. Yeah. This is nowhere near like Blonde.
No.
But I just think it's a little bit of a misfire, really. But if anyone has seen it ahead of the schedule, if anyone else at the film festival saw it and can let me know in a non-spoiler way, but
we'll also repost this review a few weeks before it comes out for the rest of us. So yeah, if you've seen it, send us in your thoughts to hello@pulpkitchenpodcast.com.
And you'll see it.
Yeah, I'm going to go and see it.
I really want to get. I want to get a temperature check. I'd love it. I would genuinely like it if you came to me and said, "Oh no, I really thought it was great."
Yeah.
But I will say that what I like about the London Film Festival is that I think that seeing a film that early in the morning is kind of the best time. Yeah, your kind of reception of a film is very, very accurate. And I heard some other people saying that as well.
Funnily enough, it's like this whole idea of an actor directing themselves and giving themselves what they want to do and expressing themselves in the way that they want to do it with infinite budget. It's like, I know you haven't seen it yet, but when I saw Hitman, which I know isn't directed by Glenn Powell, but he's co-wrote the film and had a very heavy hand in it. Him doing so many different things in it didn't feel like indulgent. Yeah. It felt like, yes, this is Glenn Powell getting to really flex himself off and show his powers. I'm not to labour the point, but I came out of it and I was like, I don't feel like I know who Bernstein was any better than I did when I went in. Yeah, that's a shame.
Like, shall I read a Wikipedia page? Anyway, let's move on.
George, should we look at some emails?
Let's do it.
If you wanted to send an email to the show, you can do by writing in your questions, your thoughts, your concerns to hello@pulpkitchenpodcast.com, which we love to receive. Just like Tyler did. Tyler writes into the show with a different email about Killers of the Flower Moon, which we read out in our bonus. Tyler, thank you for sending that in. But he asks us, seeing as it is October, I was wondering, what are your favourite Halloween films that are not best, but favourite? George? Okay.
So I'm gonna do a very politician answer and take that and make my own question out of it. So
by Halloween films, do we mean horror films?
I'm just gonna say what are my spooky autumnal October watches.
Yes, go on.
And some of them I can't claim to be my own. So I don't do that a lot. I'm not a big horror. I don't watch a lot of horror films, but my flatmate does. He loves them, and he like for years. So in October in our flat, he'll be getting through The Witch. Lots of Simpsons Treehouse of Horror,
nice, yeah,
which are really good. Shining. I'm actually very keen to watch Silence of the Lambs this year. Not a horror film, but very autumnal. You know, like it begins with her like jogging through the woods, like just feels, and it's filmed in that kind of sepia tone. So I want to watch that. I would. You know what? I'm just gonna say. Sorry. I mean, I've watched stuff with friends. Like, I would just use this opportunity to say, just watch Barbarian. If you haven't seen Barbarian, there's a lot of people.
It's a cracker.
So many people have written in and saying because they heard us talking about it last year, they went and watched it and had a great time. If you still haven't seen it yet, make that your October watch.
You know what scary film's great that I don't think we talked about much on the show? The Babadook from 2014.
Yeah,
that's a really good, creepy, scary Australian film. I watched The Lighthouse.
Talk to Me this year was quite
really
good.
Solid.
Yeah.
I'm always a fan of It Follows, The Vivitch. It's just deeply unsettling. The Lighthouse, even
the original woman, not the original, the Daniel Radcliffe Woman in
Black.
Black. Atmospheric.
Yeah,
that's very autumnal, spooky, atmospheric. I'd watch that.
Did you ever watch the film 1408 with John Cusack and Samuel L. Jackson? I remember that really scaring me.
Wow.
When I watched it on TV.
Seven is quite a good also. It's not scary, but it's very sort of depressing.
Wintry, noiry city. I really want to watch The Wailing because I've heard people recommending that.
I've had
so that's on my list.
Yeah.
I've had It Comes at Night I want to watch.
Yeah.
And then an oldie that I've still not seen is The Descent, which I hear is good. Fans of horror say they like that.
I've had a friend who's sort of mixed on that.
I'd
like to see the original Amityville Horror.
Oh, I've seen. Oh, maybe I've only seen a reboot.
Yeah, you've only seen the remake. I'm talking the 1970s, but I'd like to. I haven't seen the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Oh, I have, but like not. I'm talking sleepover, like while I'm running around doing all stuff. Yeah.
I'm trying to think of what the OG horror films are. I think I've ticked off like the main ones.
Shining, Exorcist.
Shining. I could probably rewatch The Shining actually.
Yeah. You what did you watch recently? You watched
what scary film?
Yeah, it was
Evil Dead
with Freddy Krueger.
Nightmare
on Elm Street.
Yeah, Nightmare on Elm Street. Actually, that was about 18 months ago. Actually, Jesus Christ. Yeah, and that's not scary. That's just really silly.
Well, guys, let us know what spookies you're going to be watching this spooky season. By the time this is out, it'll be close to Halloween. So let us know. We'd love to. And any recommendations you have would always be appreciated.
This next email is from friend of the show, long friend of the show and long listener, Tarby, who says, "Hi gents, as always, you guys make my week better with every post. Sometimes I find myself saying, yeah, same, or no, I disagree, out loud. And then remember, I'm in fact not sitting with you guys." Tarby, that's amazing. So I was on YouTube and was suggested a video about Gene Kelly, one of my favorite actors, dancers of the golden era. I was really obsessed with him and would watch any film on TCM that had him in it. Guys, Gene Kelly, Singing in the Rain, just to clarify. I started watching musicals that didn't have him in it, and I'm watching these 40s, 50s, and 60s musicals started my love for the genre. Every few years, I always go back to Gene and one of my favourite films of his, which is On the Town. My question is, what genre, time-specific, would you say is a comfort one? Do you often rewatch 80s action films, 40s westerns, etc.? 2, if you had to recommend one film to best represent that genre, which film would you pick and why? Keep up the great work. As always, I remain a huge fan. # bring back the food. This is my villain arc. I'll never stop. Tarby, I love that. That's fantastic. Well, James, any particular eras?
I'd say like 90s action. I've like very
90s
like
action.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah.
like growing up, you know, I'd get like a DVD and my dad would put like True Lies on or like Die
I've
Hard,
never
which I
seen True
know
Lies.
is. Oh, True Lies is good fun. I've not seen it in a really long time, but it's Arnold Schwarzenegger, Jamie Lee Curtis, Bill Paxton. Oh, wow. And Arnold Schwarzenegger's playing kind of like a much more traditional all-American, like stereotypical agent, but it's funny. It's a funny film with really good action, but it's, you know, it is 90s film.
Yeah.
It's a James Cameron film, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I would also like.
It's cozy. You could watch it at Christmas, but it's not a Christmas movie.
A bit like how Die Hard, a big action film, is also quite cozy with the Christmas thing.
I know Die Hard's not the 90s, but like it's
Speed. I also think quite comfortable. Lethal Weapon,
The
those
Matrix,
kind of things.
Matrix 1.
I don't know if I put that as a comfort film though.
Oh, for me, I find it comforting. Weirdly,
I would say that kind of similarly 90s like rom-coms, even though I haven't actually seen that many. But I mentioned that point that a few months ago, I rewatched As Good as It Gets, which is, as a film, I thought was okay, but it is filmed in the 90s and it has that honeydew autumnal warm glow.
Everything
that, like,
hadn't been renovated yet.
Has,
you know what I mean? Yes, yeah.
And the coffee cups are all kind of like colourful and
Yeah.
and it just I honestly
Full
wish it
minimalistic
was
design.
like an open world game that I could just explore. I just want to bathe in it. It's so good. Yeah, that kind of era is good. Similarly, I really like a bit of 80s nostalgia. I do kind of enjoy that. If it's anything from The Thing to Aliens or like war games or just
I like war games. War games is good.
Yeah, just something that's so obviously filmed in the past, but is like still a fairly competent film. I really enjoy.
Like got a real sense of nostalgia to it.
I really like that.
Yeah.
Also, like a good comfort film that I have is probably like The Truman Show, which I've seen because I don't know. I just think it's so endlessly rewatchable about
really
that.
is, yeah.
There's nostalgic because it's in the 90s. It also it has that kind of high fiction world.
Yes.
I'm actually due for a rewatch of that. There's a couple of big films that I'm due a rewatch of, like Shawshank and
I'd love to watch
Show.
Truman and like I want to really study the whole like overly manicured design of that film because it's all manufactured and processed and presented intentionally.
Yeah.
But it's also a film, which is always like it's like a frame of a frame.
Do you think there's like a deeper layer to it now that works about like influencer culture and like hyper veneer social media kind of attitudes?
Like advertising being slotted into everything. Like you think you're watching.
I've tried other Cocos,
but really
these ones are the best.
What? Who are you talking to?
Who are you talking to?
This next one is for Michael.
Sorry, I just love that. I'm just thinking about the bit where he meets the girl in the library and she's like, "We have to go now, otherwise they won't allow us."
Yeah.
You know, it's like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Fiji? What do you mean Fiji?
They just go round and round every single time.
Anyway.
This next one is from Michael, who's a friend of the show. He says, "Hi guys, hi gents, hope you're both well. Thought I'd throw a couple of suggestions in response to your saddest movie moments question we asked last week. For me, there are two positive... what were we talking about?
All of Us Strangers.
That was it. For me, there are two positively crippling moments that spring to mind, aside from the obvious death of Mufasa, Bambi's mother, Green Mile, etc., that usually populate lists of the saddest movie moments."
Tread the spoilers lightly in this one.
I will. Firstly, still a fairly obvious one, but the "When She Loved Me" from Toy Story 2 is just gut-wrenching.
Yeah. Oh, God, yeah.
I was there to comfort her. Yeah.
The older I get, the lower my threshold is as well, to what makes you be a bit weepy.
Right, okay, yeah, it's easier, yeah. I think because there's like we've more likely to have left something behind.
It's as you get older, you also have more emotional complexity.
Yes.
Because you've experienced more of life, you've felt more different emotions. You're like a stone that's being more
You've had to leave something of yourself behind by the time you get older.
Jesus Christ, James.
Moving on.
Anyway.
It's always gut-wrenching. I always remembered my parents saying how heartbreaking it was when my brother and I used to watch it as kids and wondering why it affected them so deeply. But as you grow up, you realize exactly why. And somehow Pixar get you to feel bad for those inanimate objects that you just stopped picking up one day as you grew up. A masterstroke, like one day you put your toy down for the last time.
Yeah.
A masterstroke from Pixar, and in all honesty, you could list a handful of moments from Toy Story that could quite easily make this sort of list. Andy brackets. Spoilers for Toy Story 3, which I feel like we're okay to do. Andy giving the toys away at the end of the third and the furnace scene, etc.
Oh, yeah.
But for some...
Andy giving the toys away is a nice moment.
Yes, it's like...
It's not sad,
it's nice.
But it's emotional.
A sad goodbye, a happy goodbye. But for some reason, the one terribly sad moment from a film that has always struck with me and still floors me more than any other is from Saving Private Ryan. But wait... It isn't Ryan visiting Miller's grave at the end. When Wade, the medic, played by Giovanni Ribisi, gives a monologue during the discussion they're all about the best way to fall asleep, where he describes his time as a child, trying to stay awake in order to see his mother, a nurse, when she came home from her shift, saying that sometimes, even though he was actually awake, he would pretend to be asleep anyway, but doesn't know why he did it. I think partly it gets me because in a weird way, I sort of get it. Those weird things you do as kids, thinking you'll be young forever, not realizing how precious time is. It is made all the more poignant when Wade is shot in combat and, as he lays dying, going into shock, it's his last act is to call out for his mum. But after all that missed time, he'll never see her again. Man, it just cuts me up every time. I'm going to stop before I start openly weeping over my laptop. Would apologise for putting a dampener on the pod, but you asked for it. Going to have a go and watch Paddington to cheer myself up. All the best. Hope you boys have a great week. Michael, but Paddington comes at an emotional cost.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, the thing, I love that email. I love when people share why specific films and specific moments
written very nicely
have meant a lot to you. That scene is, I never thought about that.
Yeah.
I remember, I rewatched it recently and I remember that scene when he's talking about trying to fall asleep. But the scene in Saving Private Ryan I think is so beautiful and I find so moving is actually when you've had the opening battle. You've had the Omaha Beach opening battle and one of the Ryan brothers has died, and you have the whole telegram bit, people writing the notes, passing it forward, and then it cuts to Ryan's mother washing up the dishes on the farmstead, out in the Midwest, and you just see the reflection of the car driving up to the house in the window, and she looks at it, she looks down, and then she looks back up, and she just knows immediately, and there's no dialogue, it's just the music, and she sort of puts the washing down, the camera follows her, she walks out, she opens the door to the porch, she sort of staggers out on the porch, and she sees it's a military car. First a general gets out, and then a priest, and that's when she falls down on the porch, and then the priest and the colonel sit down with her on the porch, and that is it. And it is so good. I got goosebumps talking about it now. It's like, it's so moving. Also, we were recently asked, well, it could have been a while ago now, but like the worst deaths in movies, or the worst, there's Private Mellish in that with the knife.
Yeah.
That's probably my least.
I've not seen
horrible.
Saving Private Ryan.
You know the bit I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do know it, but like realizing how my memory of this film, I didn't do a rewatch. I've only seen it once, and it would have been 2009, 2010.
When I was a kid, I would just take the DVD down and just watch the scenes over and over again because it's so, oh God, yeah. Anyway, this next email.
Sorry, just a scene that Tom Hanks also getting a lot of love. Toy Story, Saving Private Ryan. The final scene in Captain Phillips.
Oh, brilliant!
When he finally gets rescued and is in shock and he doesn't know where he's been hit, and the medical professional, who is a real medical professional, is trying to assess him, and he's just completely this grown man, but like beside himself.
Yeah.
Like,
I know,
weeping.
It's not my blood. Yeah,
not my blood.
Oh, it's
brilliant.
Oh, fantastic. Right, sorry. The next email is from Josh, who says, "Hi, James and George. It's Josh from Australia. How's it going?"
It's good, Josh. I waved down to the floor.
I hope you're well, and I'm loving the pod. So just wanted to say thank you for all the hard work you guys put in each week. Thank you, Josh.
Thank you.
That means a lot. Just wanted to give you my thoughts on The Creator, as I watched it recently.
Do you think you'll see it, by the way?
I don't know if I'm going to have time to catch it in cinema.
Yeah.
Which is a shame. But I will watch it. So, but I have to say, though, the more people I've spoken to about it, the less... the less...
Do you think you get it for what it is?
I think I've got the gist. Yeah. And like everyone I've spoken to has been like, this good? This good.
Yeah.
Just wanted to give you my thoughts on that. The Creator, but it was a sci-fi world that, as James said in his review, felt original, but it was easy to see where the ideas were borrowed from. Overall, I really enjoyed it. My first question is, what is your opinion on movies that don't fully resolve at the end?
Just quickly on The Creator before you move on. Yes, like the world is one of my favorite parts of that film. And while that film doesn't need a sequel, its story does sort of finish for those personal characters. If someone later down the line was like, this is a story from the world of The Creator, I think, oh, cool. Yeah, fine.
Okay. My second question is about watching movies for the second time. I've been watching Inception again. I think, can I just say, that's a very interesting way of phrasing that. That implies that you've not watched it in one sitting. I've been watching Inception again, like you've been watching a show. It's not, I watched Inception again.
I've been watching Friends again.
Yeah, I've been watching Inception again. Like,
it might just be the way he...
Sure.
Yeah.
I've been watching Inception again, and I'm loving it, so I wanted to ask, what's your opinion on movies that you need to see more than once to understand? I felt this for Inception, where watching it again makes so much more sense to me now that I know more about who they are and what they are doing. However, I have heard from some of my friends that movies have been so confusing on the first watch that they have not wanted to watch it again. Tenet, what's your opinion on these kind of movies? Sorry for the long email. Keep up the good work. P.S. I remember someone writing in, can't remember the name, about how The Prestige was a bit of a disappointment, and I totally agree.
Whoa.
Thanks, Josh. Josh, you're wrong about The Prestige, but anyway,
there's a difference between like watching something again so that you can understand it versus appreciate it.
Yeah, that's why I think
you said
the
understand it.
So I think like, when they're like, oh, I don't want to watch Tenet again. Like, I agree with that because I think Tenet's flawed. I don't think
I saw it again. It's still confusing.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the same, like seeing Oppenheimer again. I'm like, I had better clarity on my thoughts on it, but it didn't mean that 2.5 hours into the film, I was able to still keep up with the conversations that happened 2 hours before. Yeah. I really was like, I know where this is going and I know where we were. I'm really trying to catch every name and every detail, but it's still hard to
exactly. And the same way that Inception, like the first time I saw Inception, I was like, yeah, I get it. And lots of people are like, whoa, and what? I don't think I get it. I was like, no, I got it. But every time I've seen it since, you appreciate it more. As we said, I think we said this before, on the whole, every Christopher Nolan film gets better with the rewatch.
Memento even.
Yeah, all of them.
You need to experience it again to watch it through a new lens.
But as Nolan aside, I've always said that really the key, the secret to whether a film is good or not is in the second viewing.
Sure.
That's when you really
Apart
can
from
tell.
the Dark Knight trilogy, they don't take the form of an inverted double helix that needs to
Oh
be
yeah,
seen
they don't
twice.
need to see. That's absolutely right.
Yeah.
But in general, I whenever I watch a film for the second time, that is the make or break. I'll either go, yes, this is still giving me loads to work with, or I go, oh, that was fun. That was a one-time thing. I got what I needed out of the first viewing, and that's it.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
okay.
Sure.
But that's what separates good films from great films.
Well, guys, thank you so much for sending
Yes.
in your emails this week. Really appreciate hearing from you. If you want to send your email into the show, you can do by emailing into hello. Power down. Hello at popkitchenpodcast.com. George, let's end the show with a game.
A game. Sorry.
No,
Were we meant
that's
to say
that's
that?
later. That's at the next. That's when I intro the games.
Okay.
I always cue you when you need to be cued. George, I'm very excited for the big, fat Pulp Kitchen 100 quiz. I can't wait to play games with our audience.
Sorry to those who can't make it. Of course, like we said, it did sell out very quickly. Don't worry, guys. Like I said, we've got big plans for the future.
We're getting our heads together soon to plan that. We've got lots of ideas. It's going to be very fun. But in the meantime, George, this is just episode 98. And every episode of Pulp Kitchen ends
with a game.
with a game. George, I have two guess 7 in 30 miscellaneous. You've never thought of it, but you're going to have
Guess
to think
7
of
in
it.
30. Okay.
Yeah? Right. George, for this first one, let me get my timer. Never have the timer. I always get my calculator out. My brain is broken.
Yeah. It's like when I go to click on maps, I always end up
numbers.
open Find My Friends.
Yeah. Not far. There is a map
Too
there.
close.
So I bet you stare at it and you're like, I'm looking at a map.
Yeah. I see the blue icon.
This isn't what I need. Okay, George, are you ready? Okay. This one is for both TV and film, right? Okay. You have to name me 7 businesses or corporations in TV and film. These are fake companies in fiction. You have 30 seconds.
30
Your
seconds.
time starts now.
Skynet.
Yeah.
Cyberdyne
Yes.
Industries.
Yes.
I think it's Pearson Pierce, which is in American Psycho. Which is
Yes.
Good Burger.
Yeah. 15 seconds.
Docs Auto Shop, is it? Docs, what's that in? I don't know. A business, a company, Facebook?
Yeah, sure. And so I think I was going for fictional, but yeah, you know what would have been a really easy one? Is
That's
if you,
hard in 30 seconds.
It's hard in
That's
30 seconds. If you go Breaking Bad, you can get Los Pollos Hermanos, Madrigal,
Yeah, loads.
Oscorp is a good one. Like Wayne Industries,
Stark Wayne Enterprises.
Yeah, you can go down comic book and get there.
I'm quite happy with the ones I was able to get. Like, good. What the hell did
Good
that go?
Burger, home of the Good Burger. Yeah, it's cool. It's a weird one. You don't think about it,
it's a good
but
one, yeah.
they are there. Fake businesses. Okay, George, are you ready? This next one. In 30 seconds, you have to name me 7 films with talking animals. No animations allowed. You have 30 seconds. Your time starts now.
Sorry, stop. No.
No, they have to be live action with talking animals.
What about does the Lion King, the new one, count? Is that live
you can
action?
have an animated animal talking in a live action film.
Right, got it.
Ready? 3, 2, 1, go.
Dr. Dolittle.
Yes.
What's the one with Kevin James? Zookeeper.
Yes.
Would you count like the live action Lion King?
No, I'm going to say no. It's all digital there.
A talking animal. Lyle Crocodile. You out?
I haven't seen it, but I believe you.
Talking. Homeward Bound.
Yes. Those are the right lines. 5 seconds. And time. Did very well. Babe is a big one there. Narnia, I would have accepted.
yeah. Well,
you know what I mean. I'm like, the animal can be animated, but it can't. The whole film can't be an animation. So you can't say Shrek.
Okay,
is what I mean.
But why isn't the Lion? Because the whole thing is.
I think the whole
CG
thing is
rendered.
basically set. Yeah, CG
right,
rendered.
okay.
Cats and Dogs, which we mentioned recently, you could have done.
Cats and Dogs.
Yeah, or Ninja Turtles would have counted.
Which one?
Most of them.
Not
the all digital ones.
So not
but
the most recent one, basically.
Yeah, like most of them technically, I think
Talking
count.
animal.
Yeah.
Does Sirius Black talk when he's the dog?
No.
Don't know anything about Potos.
Not at all.
Niche.
Did Night in the Museum, do the animals talk? I don't think so. I don't think they do. No.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah. Well, there you go, guys. Thank you so much for spending your time with us. We really appreciate you.
Yeah, we really
getting
do.
to this part of the episode and being like, I'm actually not just here for Maestro review.
Yeah.
I want to hear like about sad movies and
George
live
struggled to
action.
get
Yeah.
game
Guys,
going.
thank you so much. Don't forget we post new episodes of this show every single Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Sorry, I missed it a bit last week, guys. I was very busy, but thank you anyway.
We really appreciate you guys listening. We genuinely do. Like, we can only get this far with your support, and we really appreciate it. And just please make sure you are subscribed to everything we do. I'm talking YouTube. I'm talking Spotify. I'm talking Apple Podcasts.
Whatever you're listening on, just
Make
do
sure
that
you're-
thing that makes it so like
Yeah.
the algorithm goes, yeah, we like these guys.
If
It
you've-
honestly makes such a huge difference for us.
If you've just touched in for this episode, please subscribe. Please stay around.
Yeah.
Instagram,
Got fun
TikTok.
stuff coming.
We post lots of stuff on there, like, like the stuff about the models from Chicken Run. It's all happening. It's all fun.
Shenanigans.
Absolutely continue to do that. We really appreciate it. And
Oh, live action Scooby-Doo.
right.
That would have been a good one.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Sorry,
No,
I'm done.
that's
Came
fine
to me.
And for our and for our 100th episode, continue to send in your voice note
Yes,
questions,
guys,
please.
We want to
really-
hear people sending in voice notes that we can play on the show. We would love to get as many of you as possible on that. So send us your voice notes.
Thank you very much for joining us again. Look forward to joining you next week for more film discussion on Pulp Kitchen.
It's been a long
It's
broadcast.
the blazer. It's making me feel like a news
very
anchor.
official. Yeah.
Thank you for joining us, San Diego. We'll see you again next week.
Bye, guys.